Aloha and welcome to Upper Date, the Universal Periodic Review update for the fourth cycle. And this is our third session. And today we're looking at building on the last one we did on the State of the Union of Human Rights on the day that the State of the Union happened. And so much has happened since then. And today I thought we'd look at, especially as I was in DC and seeing all of the 250 signs up, that we would look at Declaration of Independence and Universal Declaration of Human Rights, we the people. And I thought with that, we would really focus a lot more on the ideas of around the artivism, but more importantly, about really the framing and claiming our rights and bringing everyone together. And what I thought we would look at is exactly the point that we were discussing a bit earlier. We are 1 month away from submission of the stakeholder report. And as we know, the United States had a record number, 155 stakeholder submissions, and we have 1 to 2 of those. The good news is in this space, what we can do is reach out to everyone that did participate, or more importantly, now reach out to everyone that's interested in human rights education. So at the Amnesty International annual general meeting, I met with Cass, I met with Cynthia, I also met with UNA USA, I met with many NGOs, including also Howard University Law School and the Center of their Thurgood Marshall Center for Civil Rights to say, what can we all do regarding human rights education in our country? And how do we want to share that information and have a UPR update that actually also goes beyond where we were a year ago? Because where we find ourselves today demands a sense of urgency. Also, I would say even a greater dedication to making impact. And I also met with Human Rights Cities, and I met with Human Rights City here in Washington, D.C., which was the first city to declare itself a human rights city. And we thought this year our Human Rights on the Hill summer program would focus on youth and youth programs and how human rights cities can engage with their youth. They have ambassadors for human rights, they have many different programs. And so it's thinking about what can we do to make sure that we engage youth in this way. And we even looked at the idea of what we are doing is really 2045, the 100th anniversary of the UN. How should human rights education look in our country? How should it look around the world? And what do we need to do? Because what was clear in the meetings at Amnesty is the current domestic and foreign policy is absolutely connected. It's undermining and taking up pages of an authoritarian regime here at home. And at the same time, it is actually undermining the UN and the international system that was created, and they're directly linked. The idea of going to war, the idea of bombing innocent people off of Venezuela, that really is this aspect. Also, same with Minnesota, Christian, we appreciate all the heads up from last time. It's the elimination of due process. It's the denial of dignity. And of course, the results of both domestically and internationally is death and gross human rights violations. And so we have to embrace these instruments that we have that really establish a rule of law. That also gets to what was shared so eloquently by the youth that I was lobbying with about the honor of this nation, about the aspect of the moral character. And it's beyond just the legal. It is who are we and what do we stand for? And it was so powerful to see a 16-year-old and a 30-year-old talk to members of Congress about there's a constitution and these are the things that we have to live for. And this is how we have to do these things. And don't forget about who we are and what we stand for. And I think that's why I thought today we'd look at the Declaration of Independence and the Universal Declaration, see how we go. And then the other side was looking at what do we do next after April 10th? And really looking at what we were describing was maybe from Earth Day to the high level political forum in July, the voluntary local review, and really get that going. And then after that, really do those photo contests, do those artivism aspects. And I decided to call those photos for peace and human rights and videos of our values, voice, and vision. And that then really allows everyone to participate, not just the people that love 5-page, 10-page reports or 1 to 2 position papers. So it really allows us to reach out. And as I talk to people, it really does seem from the 250 anniversary with July 4th all the way through the G20 summit, we have an obligation to really stand up and organize. Otherwise, I can tell you from being in DC today, there are giant posters on the Department of Education that have Charlie Kirk on them. There are posters with Jesus, Charlie, Martin, Abe, and Bobby Kennedy. And it doesn't say martyrs or people who were killed. It's like the power of words. And you can see how it's being framed. It's on all the buildings. So if we don't come up with what the Declaration of Independence really stood for, which was a founding document, which very much deals with human rights, it's going to be really placed in a horrible manner that is really missing an opportunity for us as human rights educators. And so one of the things that I actually did was I met with a bunch of NGOs. I talked to them and they're like, I go, have you read it lately, Declaration? And they were like, we're so busy, it's so hard to respond. And I go, let me look. So I actually pulled it up, and it is everything that would counter exactly what this administration is doing. Even trade and tariff is in here. So, I mean, just breaking it down briefly and quick, they've got some good language, but we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, endowed with their creator with certain unalienable rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And that to secure these rights, governments are instituted deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. Therefore, whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its power in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. So it's like, whoa, that basically is just everything that was done in Minnesota by the people of Minnesota, right? That's people saying these are our rights, and what's going on goes against that. And then another wild point, just going down a little bit, while evils are sufferable, then to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations pursuing invariably the same object evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. And I think that's what we're looking at with the UPR. That's what we're looking at with human rights going forward, because around the world, more and more governments are taking those pages from the authoritarian playbook, and it's how we have to come together. And that's just taking exactly what was there. And it's saying that we have to look at what's necessary for the public good. And you can hear our dog even noting and commenting that, look at what's going on. And his name is Scooby. And I always use my, what's up, Scooby Doo, when we do our human rights language. So it's exactly that. And so it forbids the governors to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance unless suspended their operation till his assent should be obtained, and when so suspended has utterly neglected to attend to them. And it goes through all the things of what we're talking about. And it is exactly what we need to do. And the list of what they say has been done is exactly what's happening on a daily basis. It says, get this one, right? He has endeavored to prevent the population of these states for that purpose, obstructing the laws for naturalization of foreigners, refusing to pass others, to encourage their migrations hither, and raising the conditions of new appropriations of land. Wow! Obstructed the administration of justice by refusing his assent to laws for establishing judiciary powers. He has made judges dependent on his will alone for the tenure of their offices and the amount of payment of their salaries. He has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out their substance. He has kept among us in times of peace standing armies without the consent of our legislatures. And he has effected to render the military independent and superior to civil power. Like all these things is exactly what's going on. Short of quartering large bodies of armed troops, we have them in our streets, cutting off trade with all parts of the world, imposing taxes on us without our consent, depriving us in many cases the benefits of trial by jury. All the things of what he's doing is in the Declaration of Independence, and they want to celebrate this 250 like with Charlie Kirk and freedom of speech. It's amazing how much I think we can do. And just last two things real quick. He has abdicated government here by declaring us out of his protection and waging war against us. And he has plundered our seas, ravaged our coasts, burnt our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people. And he is at this time transporting large armies. Only thing it does say different is foreign mercenaries to complete the works of death, desolation, and tyranny, already begun with circumstances of cruelty and perfidy scarcely paralleled in the most barbarous ages, and totally unworthy the head of a civilized nation. So, like, we can almost just take pieces of this with high school students, with college students, and then put Declaration of Independence and then Universal Declaration of Human Rights. A little bad stuff about merciless Indian savages we don't need to repeat, but there's a lot of language here that is wild. Uh, and it says, we must therefore acquiesce at the necessity which denounces our separation, hold them as we hold the rest of mankind. In peace, friends. So it's so much there of what I think we can take and look at and just reverse it. Because otherwise, everyone's talking about WWE wrestling at the White House. Everybody's talking about the Indy car race going in different places. But it's just like what the government's about, nothing of substance. And we're looking at declaration. I even went to see the real one today, just be like, I've got to be reading something wrong. I'm just going through it, going, this is crazy. And people are wearing Trump wigs, and all the high school kids are wearing Daddy's Home t-shirts. And we've got to have Christie shirts of being happy and aspects about human rights and doing things. And that's why it was great to meet with DC Human Rights Office and look at their agency and talk to everybody about what people want to do. Uh, I was able to secure Human Rights on the Hill from July 20th through July 24th at Howard Law, and it's going to be absolutely free. So anyone, anywhere that wants to come and do that, I thought, Jasmine, we can look at either June 20th or June 27th for San Francisco and, just start coordinating because there's pretty much a rich history. And 80 years ago, we're hosting the UN Charter. 80 years ago, we're saying under ECOSOC that NGOs and people have to participate. Where, of course, it was selfish, so we wouldn't actually belong and sign up and change the way we didn't do the League of Nations. And yes, we did have spies everywhere around San Francisco spying on the governments, but we also had all the governments coming here to create the UN Charter. And everybody was pointing out, look, people have to have certain rights to stand up to their government when it's bad. And we wouldn't think 80 years ago it'd be like, oh, that's what we need at home here and for other people dealing with that. But then also, no matter where we are in the world, we all have to stand together for these rights. And these rights are a floor, a bottom that we won't go below. And when you're here, you realize how low we are. uh, People are saying, remember Dick Cheney? He believed in a constitution. And this is where we find ourselves. So I think embracing these documents, these core documents of our country, and even Harvard had a great talk, and they're like, Declaration of Independence is one celebration, but later when you get into the Constitution and all these other things, when you're really a nation, it was just a bunch of people saying it. And many groups do that now, indigenous peoples to be free, but that doesn't make it. It's what comes after. And so I think allows us to look at the family of nations and what matters and think about what we can do. And then the one last part, just to kind of look at the 5 phases of preparation, interaction, the consideration, the adoption, implementation. Be 1 month from now, April 10th, it's great that we're looking at these documents. We've never done that, I think, with any NGO. No one's had a national conversation a month out and really say, hey, how are we going to amend? What are we going to do? How are we updating? But then after we spend that time, it's great to look at what else there is. And we created a UN SDG and Global Human Rights Hub around the high level political forum. And that turned out to be great because all from Earth Day through July, everyone came and mayors and city councils did municipal multilateralism. What are we doing with this human rights-based approach to the global goals? So we can invite San Francisco, we can invite Minnesota, we can invite Honolulu to all share the best practices of each of the 17 goals. Then we have this bank of best practices that we can all look at and say, how do we do that? And I really would love to look at, because I met with at least a half dozen human rights education programs. And good news is HRE USA gets mentioned as well. What do they have? But the truth is, we don't really have the best practices from everyone, right? What's the best way to teach human rights education? So, street law is great. And street law partners with the human rights cities, and they partner with Georgetown Law. And then those university students teach high school students. That's good, right? But what are the different best practices models? And by looking at all of them, then we can decide what do we need to do, because I'm committed right now to doing human rights education in middle school with every social studies teacher, to do a one-time assembly whenever they ask for it, to do a 3 to 5 part series on whatever theme of human rights they care about, and then more importantly, a teacher training every summer with all teachers so they all have the human rights-based approach and all have the basic information. And I think we have to reach out. Amnesty, HRE USA, UNA USA, uh, RFK, right? Karen Robinson's not there, but who's in charge of that? What does that look like? Street law. Do we do youth for human rights? How do we bring everyone together? They have that great video on human rights education with Cyrus and the cylinder. Do we update that with all the different cultures of America to show how it's been emerging for centuries? But it's really time about human rights education that I've been doing it whenever everyone asks me to, but it's a time to really come up with campaigns that are concentrated, creative, compassionate, well coordinated. And the UPR is just that great chance to do that survey of what does exist and then improve it. After that period, what we really can do is these 4 different types of contest. Number 1, photos for peace and human rights. I stand up, sit in, and speak out for, and everybody holds it with whatever rights they care about. But that can make a huge, wonderful, what are they calling it? Kaleidoscope, where you put everybody's face there with their pictures, and you can actually make a symbol of it, right? It can make the building, it can make the White House, it can be the country map. This is the face, and this is what everybody cares about. The other one is sharing human rights digital activism, right? Where people share photos of human rights, and we have like these great calendars. Amnesty has always has great calendars. Greenpeace does. But as Christy was sharing with youth, we could have all those calendars and pictures out, and then videos of our values, voice, and vision. Short personal video of what human rights means to you, allowing everyone to speak about that. And that was an idea I had, but it's inspiring when you see people lobby and explain why they do it and what they care about. And it's that story of us that everybody's talking about with GANs, and there's all these new trainings around it. So I think that's good. And then the last one would be, 2 to 3 minute videos of human rights in our communities that then makes a film festival. So these are certain things that we can look at of what we can do. And then that, really takes us from September, October, November. What do we do with this to spread the word about human rights? Because no one needs anything more than that up until the review. And if the US doesn't show up, but then we have all shared and discussed what we care about. People are talking about why rights are important to them. And then we can build from there. And then if the US doesn't show up, that just shows why we have to do so much more, because it'll break the universality of human rights. And our last chance then is January of 2027. And after that, then we'll have the first country to miss an entire cycle. So we have a little bit of time. We have to get creative about it, but it's heavy, but it doesn't have to be hopeless. And these meetings that we've had have been inspiring. And it was great to have that and then have the State of the Union, because it's more accurate, and it then allows everyone to share what they feel as opposed to, and things keep getting worse. Like, who would have thought now we would have invaded another country, killed its spiritual leader, and be in a war with no end, potentially in a strait being mined, no oil coming out, and all the other things. It's just like, so we have to really bring human rights home and do more than we've ever imagined. But I'll stop there. And I do cherish the time we have together. And it's great to be able to have these recorded and be able to share and look at these documents. But I honestly was shocked. I admit it. You know, that's a good thing as educators. Of course, I've read the Declaration of Independence. It was high school and college. But it wasn't in these times. So to read it now, wow, it seems like we can really take those. And you can also be like, Josh, you just haven't slept and you're in DC and it's a little weird, you know? You're missing it. It isn't as strong as you think. But it's important to have these conversations because otherwise, buildings are decked out with things that don't make any sense. And I think it's only going to get weirder closer to 250. But I also met, with the National Archives, and they said they'd be down for a Declaration of Independence, a Universal Declaration of Human Rights events. And their tour is actually in 8 cities. So it actually gives us a chance to do things in potentially 8 cities. So the executive director of the archives was on Article 24 time. He wasn't even here. He was in Florida, but he still called me while I was sitting in front of the archives and was like, "Hey, what's up? What do you need? Let's do it." And I was like, and everybody reads about how everything's scrubbed, but you walk in, there's suffragette posters and it says Women on the Move, and the logo is the logo from the UN World Conference of Women. It's that dove with the women's logo in it. It's all there. It's still ERA. So we can't self-censor. I think we have to get sensational exactly about what we believe and be as spirited as Christie's shirt. And I'll stop there.